Hi everyone, welcome to Maria's Home and Garden. Today I'm starting a series called Pests in the Garden. Many of you might have asked yourself or others, what is wrong with my plant and what do I do to fix it? Most of the time you're not even sure where to start or what to do to fix a problem on your plants. Today we're going to focus on one of the most common pests in the garden, which are aphids. Many of you more than likely have seen them before, but probably you don't know what they look like or what they were. Aphids are sap-sucking insects, which means that they usually pierce or puncture the tissue of plants and they suck the sap of those plants. Think about a mosquito that feeds on us. Aphids can also be a vector of viruses, so they can transfer viruses from plants to plants as they feed. And they also produce a sticky substance called honeydew. One of the other things that is very important in terms of thinking about how to deal with aphids is that aphids have also asexual reproduction. Females don't need any males to reproduce. The offspring are typically the clones of the mother. Aphid infestations can get out of control very quickly because the offspring can start having babies within a week after being born. And that amount of time could be even shortened as the temperatures get a little bit warmer. So this is why we often start to see them in the spring and the summer as our temperatures start to rise. So some of the things you might see that the leaves are curling, they're even distorted, or sometimes they're turning yellow. One of the signs that you typically see once the infestation is very severe is that the plant has stunted new growth. So for example, if you have a kale that produces leaves in the center, that center is going to be deformed and the leaves are not going to form usually the way they would form normally. The flowers and the fruit can also become deformed. You will also see sticky honeydew on the leaves. You might also see black mold on the surface of the leaves. So how do you identify that this is actually aphids that you have? Well, aphids are tiny soft-body insects that usually measure less than 1/4 of an inch. They have a pear-shaped body and they can come in different colors from green, black, brown, yellow, pink, or even white. So now that you know what they look like, how do you detect an infestation on your plants? You can usually find aphids in clusters in new growth, and when you take a closer look, you can also see them on the tender stems of plants as well as the underside of the leaves. You often see ants with aphids or ants on plants that are infested with aphids is that they farm aphids for their honeydew. There is a mutualistic interaction between them where the ants obtain the honeydew produced by the aphids and the ants attack the predators of the aphids. So now that you know what are the symptoms on your plants, what aphids look like, or how to find or detect whether or not your plant has an infestation of them, the next thing that you want to know is how do I fix this problem? So there's things that are already more than likely occurring in your garden naturally, and that is biocontrol. That means that there's beneficial insects that are working to protect the plants in your garden. Some of the beneficial insects include ladybugs, lacewings, hoverflies. All of these like to feed on aphids, so they keep the population of aphids in check. One of the other beneficial insects are parasitic wasps, and these are very cool because you can see that they're present in the garden. You have aphid mummies, and here's an image of what the aphid mummies actually look like. They look pretty interesting. Aphid mummies, or the skeleton of the aphid. Parasitic wasps lay the eggs inside of the aphid, and the babies start developing, and as they're developing, they're feeding on the aphid from the inside. When the baby wasps are fully developed, they will chew out a circular opening on the abdomen of the aphid to emerge. By this point, the aphid's body has hardened and changed in color. It typically has a tan or golden color, but sometimes it can look white. It also appears larger compared to unparasitized aphids. Besides biocontrol, now let's talk about other things that you can actually do to protect your plants. So there's two main things that you can do. One of the easiest one, but does require a little bit more work on your behalf, is a strong spray of water. Another one that can work is insecticidal soap or neem oil. This works, but the insecticidal soap and the neem oil can have negative effects on your beneficial insects, and you have to make sure that you're applying it correctly. So one of the things that you can do to essentially keep the aphid population under control is prevention. And not only for an aphid infestation, but in general, when you're thinking about pests in the garden, that is your first line of defense. You have to regularly inspect your plants, especially in the spring and the early summer, because you won't necessarily know what a healthy plant looks like. But if you're always looking at your plants, you know exactly when your plant looks strange and something is happening to your plant. Another thing that often I hear people saying, oh, my plant looks unhealthy, it has yellow leaves, so why not add a fertilizer? Well, the problem with that is if you have an aphid infestation, it's actually encouraging the aphid infestation. The reason why is that nitrogen is responsible for plant growth. And remember that aphids love that new growth. So if you're adding nitrogen, you're encouraging the plant to grow much faster, and that also encourages the population of aphids to grow even more. So one of the things that you can naturally do is have biodiversity in your garden. This means that you're going to have different types of plants in your garden, and that will bring in the beneficial insects that we were talking about earlier: ladybugs, lacewings, and hoverflies, and also parasitic wasps that would be beneficial for garden as well. You can watch this other video to see the different plants that I'm growing in my container garden. Now let's take a look at a plant with an aphid infestation and walk step by step through the process of getting rid of the aphids on this plant. This is a purple mustard plant. The first thing that I noticed was that on the surface of the plant there was a white powdery substance on it. When I took a closer look, I saw that there was definitely an aphid infestation. So you can definitely see the aphids on the surface of the plant. And you can also see it in different parts as well. So you have it in the center, on the side of the leaves, and lots of them on the underside of the leaves as well. At this point, I had to decide what to do with this plant, whether I wanted to save it or cut my losses and remove it from my garden. This plant is a cool weather green that does not do very well in zone 10A. As soon as we get warmer temperatures, the plant doesn't thrive here. So what I decided to do with this plant was to try to treat it and extend its life. When treating any pest problem in the garden, I start with the least invasive or less destructive method. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to let it rain. So that means is that we're going to use water as a first line of defense or treatment for this particular problem. I'm going to be using a water pump with an attachment that produces a strong stream of water. For this method to be effective, I need to knock off all of the aphids from this plant. So we're going to go ahead and start from the top, and then we're going to go ahead and move to the underside of the leaves. This treatment of using water is very effective because it matches the biology of the aphids. Remember that the aphids are sap-sucking insects, so they attach themselves to the plant with a needle-like mouth part that is called the stylet, and they do that while feeding. The strong stream of water can harm the aphids themselves, but more importantly, when they get dislodged, it could potentially damage their stylet. This is what we want, because when the aphids are not actually feeding and they get knocked out of the plant, they could potentially just climb back onto the plant and start feeding on it again. If the stylet of the aphids gets damaged, those aphids are not able to feed on the plant anymore, even though they might still be able to climb on the plant. The ones that we're concerned about are the ones that are not actively feeding on the plant when we dislodge them with the water. The problem is that when they do climb back up, they could potentially start feeding on the plant again. And this is why this method has to be repeated for it to be effective. And you might ask at this point, well, how often should I repeat it, or for how long? The answer to that question is that it depends on how severe the aphid infestation is on your plant. So for this plant, what I'm going to do is repeat this process every day. So in day 1, this is what the plant looked like before, and this is what the plant looks like now. You can definitely see the difference. And the other thing that I want you to notice is that there is biocontrol also occurring on this plant. Remember that we talked a little bit about the aphid mummies, so you can definitely see here on the center of the plant, you see those little gold dots. Those are aphid mummies. So that means that we are getting some help from our beneficial parasitic wasp as well. Today is day 2. We're going to first inspect the mustard plant, focusing on the newt growth, the top of the leaves, as well as the undersides, and also the parts where the aphids were not previously present, since the aphids that survive are more than likely looking for a safe place to feed, and they're probably going to be found in different places today. We're going to check any of the part of the leaves that might also be curled, as those are the perfect places where also aphids can hide. After inspecting the plants, we're going to apply the second water treatment. So we're going to make it rain one more time. We're going to spray the mustard plant with a strong stream of water, focusing on the newt growth, the top and underside of the leaves, as well as any curled leaves and the stem. This is what the mustard looks like after the water treatment, and this is what it looked like before. Today is day 3. We're going to follow the same procedure as yesterday with a plant inspection first and then applying the third water treatment. Let's check the new growth, the top and the underside of the leaves, as well as the stems. There are definitely less aphids on the plants, indicating that this water treatment is working. Now we're going to apply the water treatment with a strong stream of water on the new growth, the top and the underside of the leaves, as well as the stems. This is what the mustard looks like today, before and after the water treatment. Today is day 4. Let's follow the same procedure as yesterday and start with a plant inspection. Let's check out the new growth, the top and the underside of the leaves. There are less aphids on the plant, indicating once again that the water treatment is working. As the days have progressed, we see fewer and fewer aphids on this mustard plant. The aphid population will continue to decline to the point where we can use other methods to get rid of the remaining aphids. One of the best tools that you can use, and you already have, is your hands. Once the population goes down to a manageable number, we can start squishing them. If you're squeamish about using your hands, you can wear gloves and start squishing them or continue applying the water treatment. Let's make it rain and spray the mustard with a strong stream of water on the new growth, the top and the underside of the leaves, as well as the stems. So by this point, you know the routine. This is what the mustard looks like today after the water treatment. Today is day number 5. Let's inspect the mustard plant. I'm checking the parts where the aphids are likely to settle in, which are the new growth, the top, and the underside of the leaves. There are very few aphids on the plant. At this point, I'm squishing all the aphids that I can see. Yay! No more water treatment is needed today for the first time since we started. Because there weren't many aphids today, we're going to stop the water treatment and allow a few days to pass to make sure that the aphid population is indeed under control. Today is day 16. More than 10 days have already passed since our last water treatment application. Remember that aphids reproduce very quickly, usually anywhere between 7 to 10 days after they are born. So, if we still have a stable population of aphids on this plant, we will be able to see it today. Let's start with our usual inspection of the new growth, the top and the underside of the leaves. This is what the mustard plant looked like on the first day and what it looked like now after several water treatments. The strong water spray method in combination with the mechanical method of squishing the aphids with your hand was very effective at getting rid of the aphid infestation on this plant. You more than likely will encounter plants that have a severe aphid infestation at one point or another. I made the difficult decision to sacrifice a kale plant at the end of the fall. There were so many aphids on it that it would have been very difficult to manage, and the new growth was severely deformed. The leaves were turning yellow very rapidly, so I decided to just sacrifice the plant. So what I did was cut the tall kale plant down to just about a few inches right above the soil, and I left it in place so that the roots could actually decompose. However, to my surprise, here is the plant today. It regrew with a vengeance. You can see the cut that I made and all of the growth so far. These are some examples that show you different methods that can be used together to effectively control aphid infestations at different stages of severity, and that do not harm other plants or the beneficial insects in your garden. Subscribe to get notified when the next video in this series, Pests in the Garden, gets released. Here's a video that you can watch next. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video.